Sometimes a story is just a story, but more often than not, they are a lesson cloaked in entertainment. The stories I share here are definitely the latter. Some are fact, some are fiction, all are beneficial. Hello, my name is Earl Breon, and you are listening to the Leadership Chronicles. Today's story is titled, It's Raining. This is a story I heard while listening to a risk management expert named Gordon Graham speak. Gordon travels the country speaking primarily to emergency management and first responder entities. He has a background in both law enforcement and as a lawyer. If you ever get a chance to hear Gordon speak, I highly suggest you take the opportunity. I promise you won't be disappointed. Okay, on to the story. This story takes place while Gordon was still with the California Highway Patrol. He was a desk sergeant this day, which meant his responsibility for the shift was wide-ranging. He had to keep track of all of the cars, the cases they were responding to, and have a plan to get them on site if there was a crisis to respond to. To add an extra layer of difficulty to this day, it happened to be raining. Now, if you've never lived in a region with a lot of traffic and long, hot, and dry periods in between rain events, this may not sound all that significant. But if you have, you know that during the dry time, oil, grease, and other grime can build up on the road, and when it rains, that road becomes pretty slick until enough rain has fallen to wash that away. Well, that was exactly the situation that Gordon and his crew was in on this day. Now, from his time in a car, Gordon knew that accidents always went up in the rain because of this, and not just for citizens, but for police officers as well. He also knew that every car that wasn't on the road undermined the force's response capabilities. So Gordon set out to try to prevent this from happening. But how? How can you do that from this far away? Gordon was looking over the data from the previous shift where it had been raining as well. And just as he suspected, they had seen an increase in accidents on their shift. They had had several police cars involved in accidents directly related to slickness due to rain. That's when it hit him. He goes down to the dispatcher and he asks him to send a message to all cars that it was actually raining. Now he says the dispatcher looked at him like he was an idiot. Of course it was raining. Everybody knew it was raining, so what was the point? But they sent the message. All cars, it is raining. And then the radio went silent. After hearing how the message went out, Gordon was not convinced that this was going to be enough. So he asked the dispatcher to send another message to all cars. All cars, please confirm that it is raining. One by one, voices began checking in over the radio as requested. Gordon heard a series of obviously perturbed voices begin giving their car number and acknowledging the fact that it was indeed raining. Now, he knew he had likely just made himself look silly, but he was curious how the shift would go from there. And at the end of the day, there was not a single patrol car accident on his shift. From then on, whenever it was raining, Gordon had the same message sent out. All cars, please confirm that it is raining. This became his standard practice. Well, then one day, a higher up happened to be near a radio and heard this absurd-sounding message go out, and he came looking for the person responsible for sending it. The dispatcher sent them to see Gordon, and this higher up had one simple question. Why are you distracting these people with such an idiotic message? Of course they know it's raining. You don't think the little water droplets on the windshield gave it away? How dumb do you think your people are? Gordon's response was priceless. Sir, I don't think they're dumb at all. I think they are overwhelmed by so many other dangers that they minimize the danger rain really represents to them. He then began to lay out the stats he had been collecting that showed how, since he had began sending these messages in those situations, his shift had significantly less accidents when compared to others. And the ones that they did have were usually due to someone else not paying attention to the conditions. When comparing this data to other shifts in the situation, It was clear that Gordon's methods were working. But why? Here is where the leadership lesson of the story comes in. You see, Gordon understood what his team was facing on a daily basis. By being removed from the ground level of operations, he could more easily see those big picture items, such as rain. On the ground, his team was thinking about drug dealers, murderers, and rapists, as well as traffic accidents. But he could help raise their awareness to the minor details that posed risks as well. He intuitively understood that his job was not so much about doing the things his team would do, but ensuring that they had a safe, efficient, and effective environment to do them in. So they could focus on the obvious dangers, and Gordon would have their back with the minor details that they may miss. Also, his message showed his team that he cared. Yes, his team may have grumbled and thought he was a little out there for making them acknowledge the fact that it was raining, but on some level they appreciated that he cared enough for their well-being to put that message out. And that, in and of itself, is powerful to leadership. As John Maxwell puts it, your team doesn't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Finally, it shows the benefit of being okay being seen as a little odd as long as it achieves results. Now, this was a lesson we discussed a little bit in episode 3 talking about Cliff Young, but Gordon's story here hits it from a different angle. You see, Cliff didn't really have people telling him to stop. In fact, they sat back and wanted to see how fantastically he may fail. But Gordon did have people telling him to stop. But he cared enough and had the courage and conviction of his beliefs to stand by his behavior because it was for the good of his team. Nothing, and I mean nothing, will build team loyalty like being a leader willing to stand up for their team, even if it makes you look a little silly personally. Okay, now time for some growth questions. Are you okay being the outlier for the good of your team? If not, why not? Are you in tune with the daily operations of your team enough to identify the minor things that they may miss? Can you identify their reign? Have you kept the lines of communication open to the point where if you do see a risk that they may be missing, that they will listen when you point it out? How important is it to you to know that your leader cares enough for you and your teams to, metaphorically with the theme of the story, let you know when it's raining? Well, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. The story I call It's Raining, about Gordon Graham, his leadership, and some questions to help you grow your own leadership abilities. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Leadership Chronicles. To continue the discussion, find me on Twitter at Earl_Breon, Facebook at facebook.com/Layman Leadership, all one word, or email me at podcast@earlbreon.com.